For years, I thought I understood why China became the world's factory. I thought I understood what made China so powerful. Cheap labor, huge factories, low production costs, massive exports. That is what I believed. But after nearly 20 years in international trade, I changed my mind. Today, I don't think China's biggest advantage was ever manufacturing. I know that sounds strange, but stay with me, because I think we have been asking the wrong question. Every week, I see the same headlines. Factories are leaving China. India is rising. Vietnam is growing. Mexico is attracting manufacturers. Maybe they are even true. But after working in international trade, I think those headlines are missing something much bigger. Because replacing factories isn't the hard part. Building what China built is. Let me ask you a question. What makes a country powerful? Cheap labor, lower costs, bigger factories? Maybe. But I don't think that's enough, because if it were, many countries would have already replaced China. So, what did China do differently? To answer that, we need to go back almost 50 years. In 1978, China made one of the most important economic decisions in modern history. It opened its economy, welcomed foreign investment, learned from the world's best manufacturers, and most importantly, it played the long game. China wasn't trying to become the world's factory overnight. It was building something that would take decades. And I think that is one of the biggest lessons in business. Real competitive advantages take time. I have seen that in my own business. When we started our solar lighting company, we had a choice. We could sell the same products as everyone else, or spend more time understanding our customers and make those products better. So I came to Bangkok. I spent nearly a month working with product designers, not to invent something revolutionary. I am not an inventor. I am an international trader. My job is simple. Understand markets, find opportunities, create more value. That is exactly what we did. The improvements were small, but they helped us export our products to 4 different continents, including government projects in Turkey, Jordan, Ghana, and Algeria. That experience taught me something I will never forget. You don't have to invent the next great product. More often, the biggest opportunity is improving an existing product for the right market. Looking back, I think many people misunderstand China's story in exactly the same way. For years, myself included, I believed China's success came from copying Western products. But copying alone didn't make China a manufacturing leader. Learning did. Improving did. Thinking decades ahead did. Because eventually China wasn't just improving products anymore. It was building something much bigger. And nowhere tells that story better than Shenzhen. If I ask you to name one of the greatest business success stories in modern history, you would probably think of a company. Apple, Amazon, Tesla, maybe. But I think one of the greatest business success stories is actually a city, Shenzhen. Today, it is one of the world's leading manufacturing and technology hubs, home to world-class manufacturers, technology companies, electronics giants, and one of the busiest ports on the planet. But less than 50 years ago, none of these existed. No skyscrapers, no giant factories, no global supply chains. Just a small fishing village. A fishing village to one of the most important business cities in the world. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens because someone was thinking decades ahead. One of my favorite places in Shenzhen is Shenzhen Bay Park. Every time I stand there looking across the bay toward Hong Kong, I ask myself the same question. How did this happen? It is hard to believe that just a few decades ago, the side of the bay looked completely different. To me, that view isn't just beautiful. It is a reminder of what long-term thinking can build. I had the opportunity to visit Shenzhen myself, and honestly, what impressed me wasn't the skyline. It wasn't the skyscrapers. It wasn't even the factories. It was something much more important. Everything worked together. together. Suppliers, manufacturers, engineers, ports, logistics companies, technology firms, everything felt connected. As someone who spent nearly 20 years in international trade, that was the moment I realized I wasn't looking at factories anymore. I was looking at a system. Imagine you want to build a smartphone. You need chips, glass, batteries, cameras, packaging, engineers, testing, shipping. Now imagine most of those suppliers are only a few hours away. That is not just manufacturing. That is coordination. That is speed. That's an ecosystem. And ecosystems are incredibly difficult to copy. The more I walked through Shenzhen, the more one question kept coming back to me. What if China's biggest achievement was never building factories? What if it was building everything around those factories? Because factories are only one piece of the puzzle. The real competitive advantage is everything working together. And that is exactly where I think most people misunderstand China's success. Because what China built was much bigger than manufacturing. It was building the foundation of something much bigger. Up until now, we have been talking about factories. But I think factories are actually the least interesting part of China's story. Because factories are the part everyone can see. The real advantage is the part most people never see. A factory doesn't work alone. Behind every product is an entire network of businesses. Raw material suppliers, component manufacturers, logistics companies, ports, trade finance, technology platforms. Thousands of businesses working together as one system. That is what I mean when I say an international trade machine. And here is what really changed the way I think. Many times I would contact one supplier in China. Within minutes, they would introduce me to another supplier, a better packaging company, a tooling specialist, a logistics partner, or another factory that could solve a problem I didn't even know I had. That is the power of an ecosystem. It is not one company. It is thousands of businesses constantly sharing knowledge, solving problems, and making each other stronger. The more I experienced that, the more I realized China's biggest competitive advantage was never one factory. It was the network behind every factory. Now think about trying to copy that. You can build a factory, you can buy machines, you can train workers, but can you build decades of supplier relationships, trust, experience, an entire business network? That is much harder. And that is why I don't think companies continue sourcing from China, simply because of lower costs. They are buying speed, reliability, and an ecosystem that already works. Factories can move, machines can move, even people can move, but ecosystems take decades to build. And that is why I believe we have been asking the wrong question. The real question isn't who will replace China. The real question is who can build a system like China's. At this point, you might be thinking, if everything you have said is true, then why are factories leaving China? That's a fair question. And the answer is, some of them are. Manufacturing is expanding into India, Vietnam, Mexico, Indonesia, Thailand, Turkey. And I believe that's a natural part of global business. Companies are always looking for lower costs, new markets, and new opportunities. That is nothing new. But here is where I think many people stop the story too early. Factories are moving. The system isn't. At least not yet. Take Apple as an example. Some iPhones are now assembled outside China. But many of the components, many of the suppliers, and decades of manufacturing expertise are still deeply connected to China. That is the difference between moving production and moving an ecosystem. Those are two very different challenges. Over the years, international trade introduced me to manufacturers, logistics companies, trade finance providers, cross-border payment platforms, market intelligence companies, and technology businesses, all solving different parts of the same challenge. Some of them even became partners through the educational content I had been creating. Looking back, I realized something. None of those companies were building factories. They were making global trade faster, smarter, and more more connected. And that's exactly what strong ecosystems do. They allow thousands of specialized businesses to create far more value together than they ever could alone. That is why I believe China's biggest competitive advantage has never been one company or one factory. It is the ecosystem connecting them all. And that is also why I believe countries like India, Vietnam, Thailand, Mexico, and many others have tremendous opportunities ahead. I have made entire videos about those opportunities. I truly believe they will continue growing, but replacing factories and replacing ecosystems are two very different challenges. One can happen in a few years, the other may take decades. And I think that is the biggest lesson China has taught me. Not how to build factories, but how to build long-term competitive advantage. At the beginning of this video, I told you that I thought we had been asking the wrong question. After everything I have seen, after nearly 20 years in international trade, I still believe that. For years, the world has been asking, who will replace China? But after looking beyond the headlines, I don't think that is the most important question anymore. Because countries don't become great simply by building factories. They become great by building systems. And maybe that is not only a lesson for countries. Maybe it is a lesson for every entrepreneur, every importer, every exporter, every business owner. Don't build something that anyone can copy. Build something that is difficult to copy. Build relationships, build trust, build knowledge, build systems. That is where long-term competitive advantage comes from. And honestly, it is a lesson I am still learning myself. If you are building an import-export business, looking for reliable suppliers, developing networks, or expanding into international markets, I would be happy to help. Whether it is international trade consulting, supplier sourcing, supplier verification, market research, or building a stronger sourcing strategy, you will find everything in the description below. And before you go, there is one more thing. Throughout this documentary, we have explored why China became one of the world's greatest manufacturing ecosystems. But that naturally leads to another question. If you wanted to start importing from China today, what products would actually be worth looking at? That is exactly what we will explore in the next video. The 10 best products to import from China in 2026. Not random products, not get-rich-quick ideas, and not products that promise guaranteed success. Because there are no guaranteed products, only better opportunity for those who know how to recognize them. I will share the products I would personally research first, based on nearly 20 years of international trade experience, global market trends, manufacturing strength, and long-term business potential. So, if that sounds interesting, make sure you are subscribed. Because this channel isn't about chasing trends. It is about understanding how global business really works. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, bye bye.